Well, jeepers! You're listening to Smash or Pass.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another interview on the JayBee and Milly channel. I am JayBee, and of course, with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan.
Hi.
We have Sophie.
Hey.
And the special guest who will be interviewing today is Mr Monaco. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh, this is absolutely incredible. And as you sussed us out beforehand, our background does give away that a lot of people watching may know you from composing Be Cool Scooby Doo and also Scooby Doo and the Gourmet Ghost. But we're really looking forward to getting into your, wider career as well. And what better place to start than the start? So, IMDb says that you started in like the early 2000s, but what really made you want to become a composer or work in music before that point?
It was really in high school that I started playing guitar a little bit more seriously, and I would sit there watching MTV when it still showed music videos, and either trying to figure out the songs on my own, or watching artists and so they're playing guitar and then trying to mimic that. And then towards the end of high school and throughout college, I was part of a couple of bands, and we did a little bit of college touring towards the end of our college days. And then I spent about 2 years there afterwards, still working in a music tech lab and studio, as well as still performing, enjoying the singer-songwriter side of things. And then needed to figure out what a next step might be. So someone told me about the USC's scoring for motion pictures and television program. And I flew out to visit it, and I immediately fell in love and like, oh my God, this is a job. Like I could actually be doing this. So I applied to the program and was fortunate enough to get in, at which point, towards the end of the year, I got a assistantship with another composer, Christoph Beck, and was with him for about 7 to 8 years before starting out on my own career in 2014.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, it's really interesting to hear, like you say, that things started with watching the MTV music videos. I remember my brother having that on a lot when we were growing up. Was there ever any particular, I don't know, composers or even artists that you really enjoyed, that you think inspired you or anything like that?
I very much liked the indie rock scene, and being on the East Coast just has a very different vibe. This was before I came out here to California. So it was artists like Dave Matthews Band and Guster and Rusted Root and this genre that, there were more interesting guitar parts to them than, a typical 4 chord kind of progression that 100 songs have used already. And I think that was what was attractive to me about, this style and these bands, kind of jumping into it and figuring out, well, you can do something that isn't just traditional chords, like what other things can you do? So I think that inspired a lot of creativity. And then once I came out here and started diving further into the film music world, Thomas Newman was a huge influence. I love the way that he approaches his scores and the way that he really works with musicians ahead of time and let them also help inform what kinds of sounds, techniques might be used in signature to that score. I found that very inspiring too, because a lot of the time with a project, I'll spend the first chunk of time building a toolbox, so to speak. And whether that's me noodling around on different instruments and creating different rhythms, patterns, combinations of things that I can then pull from specifically, so I'm narrowing my vision a little bit and not just having this very broad range of instruments and sounds to pull from. So a little bit more focused, and then I can kind of keep this cohesiveness throughout the course of the score if I stick to that toolbox that I've already established.
Yeah, oh, that sounds great. And really continuing on from that, do you have any advice for people watching who want to get into music and composing?
I personally, I think going the assistantship route or even starting as an intern with another composer in their studio and just getting the real world experience as far as how all of this works. This is regardless of compositional skill. You may be the best composer and best orchestrator, and you've done a million things before, but the way that you apply that knowledge to actually scoring a film and how to interact with filmmakers, studio execs, director, producer. Like there's so many different cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, and it's how do you navigate that in the most successful way possible. And I feel like really the only way to get that experience is by being in the room with other people and learn what to do, what not to do. And, you know, you can start to develop your own style of communication and feel more confident with it from there.
I love that. That's such great advice. Along with being a composer, you also are credited as score coordinator for movies like Fred Claus and Pitch Perfect. What does this entail?
So similarly to, you know, what I was recommending, you know, being able to assist another composer, in those instances, Christoph Beck was the composer of those films. And my job was to make sure that everything just flowed smoothly as we were getting towards the end of the project. We prepare ourselves to do larger recording sessions, whether that's with a small orchestra, large orchestra, maybe it's a small band or just a single guitarist. So however that might look, there's quite a long process from going from, you know, presenting a cue or a piece of music in its demo phase to where it gets to its final mix that then gets delivered to the dub, where they mix in the music, the sound effects, the dialogue, and everything. That's kind of their last step before it gets released into the world. So the coordination between all of that, making sure everybody has what they need in order for the, you know, the ship to keep sailing as smoothly as possible.
Definitely is interesting to get a gauge on what things mean, because sometimes, you know, obviously when you see something on IMDb, it's very difficult to differentiate what things mean and how it differs. And I guess similarly on that theme, you were also the score producer on The Hangover Part 3. Is that very different to what you were doing on like Pitch Perfect and everything, or like how does that work?
Moving forward with in my working relationship with Chris, I started to be able to take on a little bit more responsibility, whether that was a little bit of additional writing or then moving to more producing the recording sessions. So I might be giving specific instruction to the musicians. You know, we might do a take and be like, okay, we have to look at bars X through X again. Or instead of it making it so, you know, smooth and legato, let's do it little short staccato notes, or, you know, basically just that kind of working with musicians can be looked at more of the production of the score itself.
Oh, that's brilliant. And, you know, speaking of brilliant, like one thing that I watched, I'm pretty sure the day it premiered, is Incredible Animal Journeys on Disney Plus. I think personally my favorite episode was episode 4 with the rockhopper penguins, just because
Oh yeah.
I think the penguins are my favorite animal of all time. They're just amazing. But I'm so curious about that. Like, how did that come about? And when you're scoring with it, are you given a pitch for what the scene's going to entail, or do you get to score to the actual footage that'll be shown on screen?
The process for this show was very different than other shows that I've worked on in the past. You know, Be Cool Scooby Doo, we knew we had 52 episodes. We were going to be doing an episode every 2 weeks for 2 years, and that was the job. Whereas with this, there was ideally we'd be doing, you know, the space between the episodes as we're closing out the production. When I was hired on very far in advance, which I was very grateful for. Before they even really knew what the stories were going to be that they were trying to tell. The way that these shows work, they have amazing footage that they've gotten, and then the editors and director kind of have to go through all this and almost create the story from what they have. Not to say that they're, you know, creating something that isn't real. I mean, they're still taking all of the real and all of the facts and how the animals do this, but you need to be able to put the right shots together in order to communicate the story in the best way possible. So what I was very happy to be a part of initially was knowing who our characters for each episode were, and then being able to dive into those and developing themes and sounds, developing the toolbox that I needed, not only for the series or for that specific episode or that specific animal. You know, each animal has their own theme. Each episode has a bit of an overarching sonic identity to it. And then there is the main title theme that is recurrent throughout the entire series. Whenever we talk about the migration moving forward, you know, this is a journey that the animals are going to continue to go on for the rest of their lives. So it really is this ongoing thing, and that's tries to portray that through the main title and what it does musically.
That's amazing. And as you did guess earlier, obviously from the background, we are really excited to get onto what you did on Scooby as well. And I'm kind of keen to know, really, before you started work on Be Cool, how familiar were you with, as you were saying, it's important to get to know the characters and things like that. How familiar were you with the characters and Scooby Doo as a whole?
I remember watching, I'd come home from school and it was like at 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon. And at this point, I think the newest iteration was like the Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo from the 90s. And so I think that was my first exposure to it. And then after that, I had seen a lot of the original ones, Where Are You? And some different iterations over time. But you know, I once it got to Be Cool, I know there was a huge pushback with the online community just about how different the animation style was. I think that turned a lot of people off to it. But those people that gave it a proper chance and could embrace it for what it was, not trying to compare it to the other iterations of Scooby, I think it is hands down one of the funniest versions of Scooby and any iteration. Daphne's little quirks in every episode, how she has something completely random, from the little puppet figures in the first episode to having a mustache or a goatee in one of the episodes. It's just hilarious what she does and what they came up with for her.
I mean, speaking as a Zoom full of nothing but Daphne fans, the extra focus on her character was really appreciated. And at what point in the project did you become involved, and how early on, and how does that happen? Is it that you kind of, I don't know, so obviously for the voice actors, an audition process, what's it like for you, and how do you become involved with this project?
So my agent sent me a brief. A lot of these production companies, when they start looking for a composer, they might contact agencies, and they'll send out a brief. This is what we're looking for. Here are the details of the show. They're not disclosing too many of the details, but they want you to know it's Scooby Doo. It's this. They kind of spell it out, and then I believe from there they sent out 1 or 2 scenes from the first episode to score ahead of time, kind of as a spec demo. Let's see, what you do, and if it's in the right vein of what we're looking for, then we can, adjust it from there. But otherwise, if it's way off, then we're gonna choose a different composer. And I tried to, gravitate towards what is the classic Scooby sound of, it's a little bit bluesy, a little bit jazzy in that respect. So I tried to pull things from that, but also while keeping some more of it a little bit more modern. The way that the music was treating or the way the music was acting towards the animation was more modern in terms of, hitting very specific things versus just kind of wallpapering a tone in the background, which is one of the things I think accentuated some of the comedy in this iteration of the series.
Oh, wow, it's always great hearing like the behind the scenes of Scooby. And actually, we had the pleasure of interviewing Matthew Jansen, who also worked. Yeah, well, I know he also worked on Be Cool. How did you decide which different aspects of the music to work on?
When I started the show, I had my fair share of experience in film, but TV is very different, specifically TV animation. I think that you can't reuse anything. So you're writing 22 minutes of music every single, 2 weeks, but also the episodes are overlapping. So you might be, completely, newly writing one episode while you're revising a second episode, while you're doing the last revisions on the third episode, while you're finishing and delivering the fourth episode. So everything's staggered like that. So it can get pretty hectic and chaotic. And I very quickly realized I was not going to be able to do that on the solo. And so I knew what I wanted to do. I knew, how to treat these things. But I just physically and mentally was not able to execute every single note along the way. I had known Matt. I had worked with him a little bit before, and he is an incredible pianist and is very in tune with what I was after, same, very symbiotic styles. So he was really the perfect fit for us to be able to collaborate on Be Cool. And then when the time came for Scooby Doo and the Gourmet Ghost, we were able to actually do a co-score for that one. And then, you know, Matt's career has skyrocketed, you know, since then. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to be able to collaborate on that stuff.
Oh, fantastic. And on the same subject as Matthew, we know that there was a wonderful video of the two of you called Cooking Up a Main Theme. What was it like to film that together?
It was ridiculous. You know, a lot of this industry, you know, we take everything so seriously, and us composers, you know, can rarely see the light of day, you know, working late hours and everything. So we kind of look forward to any opportunity to get out of the studio and just do something different, but still, you know, scratching that creative itch. So we were just like, you know what, Gourmet Ghost is coming out. Let's do some sort of silly promotional thing, and maybe that'll help, you know, it gain a little bit of traction or more eyes on it. And so we kind of tossed some ideas back and forth, and because it was Gourmet Ghost and cooking and everything like that, what if we cooked up a main title? And so we had a friend of ours, his name was Peter, and he had directed a bunch of stuff before, and we got together for a few hours in his kitchen, and we brought a bunch of little instruments and toys and things like that, and it's just silly, over the top. We had fun doing it, and it's nice for that to live on.
Oh wow, so much fun. On the topic of Be Cool Scooby Doo, it's definitely one of the funniest Scooby Doo shows. How much did the music have to reflect this?
I think a lot. I think commenting on the way jokes were teed up, and being able to, you know, create these big tension building things, and then these immediate music cutoffs, you know, really just depending on what's happening in the scene, and you know, how ridiculous can we make it when we're Shaggy and Scooby, and how serious can we make it when, you know, the plan's about to go into action, and, you know, are they going to succeed? So there's, you know, lots of these different moments throughout. The two things that I think were also just unique to this type of series, there's in every episode, there was what we called a haircut scene, where Shaggy and Scooby would get the monster into some sort of predicament, basically just to distract him and be like, what's going on? And then, you know, their hijinks ensue, and then they take off, and the monster's like, ah. So there was that. That was a recurring thing, and just the way we could more just sillily treat it. And then the romp songs, you know, they brought that back from the way that they used to do it in the original series. And, you know, I wrote a few of the romp songs. A few other songwriters contributed. Sometimes it was from a music library, but always with the task of, here's the song, how are we going to fit it to this version of picture to make it also make sense musically? You know, when we hit the chorus, let's hit it at this point, you know, in the chase, because this is a big moment where they all leap, or, you know, whatever happens. So shaping all of it to try and, you know, reflect what's happening in picture as best as we can.
Honestly, the music is great. Like, it is comedy gold. Like, I love this. I mean, we all love the series. Like, it's my top 5 favorite Scoobies and Scooby purists. Like, Be Cool is one of the best. Like, I can't speak highly of it. Do you have any favorite musical pieces from Be Cool Scooby Doo?
I loved the Scream Madonna episode. I think that was one of the most fun ones. Daphne's thing of playing the tuba, and then and then like her like playing the keyboard, like as one of the other characters is like crossing the stage, like Velma's going up to the microphone or something like that, and then her playing this big like elaborate piano concerto during the entire chase, as if she is scoring it from the stage. I just there are some instances like that that I think are really creative. There was another one in season 2 where I think it was about an opera singer, and just being able to go big and over the top in a very specific style is always fun to embrace that.
It's amazing. The only one regret that I have is the fact that in order to like appreciate the musical pieces, I guess you've got to shift out like the voices and some of the other like effects out of the way. And so I'm curious to know, because the majority of my playlist is like musical like soundtracks. Do you still have any of those like pieces if Warner Brothers were ever to decide to do a soundtrack for Be Cool Scooby Doo or Gourmet Ghost at all?
If you can get someone to agree to release that,
Mm.
I've got it all put together.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. That's incredible. Like, I just need them to do it. Maybe we can like clip this out, pop it on TikTok, and just
Here we go.
just add
Start
everywhere.
a petition, and we'll make it happen.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. And there's a lot of like topics. I kind of want to balance it between Be Cool Scooby Doo and Gourmet Ghost because I love both of them. But obviously, I think Gourmet Ghost came a little bit after Be Cool Scooby Doo. So, how did your approach to that movie differ from the Be Cool series?
It was actually pretty similar, to be honest. What was nice about doing a feature length versus cramming everything into 22 minutes is that you have a little more time to develop things musically. Got the opportunity to write, I think it was like a 90-second main title to it, and you're watching over the main titles, you're seeing the eras go by in terms of going from this colonial period all the way to modern day. And the main title reflected that, where it started in this kind of colonial fife and drum version, moving into a bit more of like a jazzy kind of 30s 40s type feel, and then becoming even a little bit more modern towards the later third of the main theme, and then being able to take that, thread it through the episode where appropriate, having a specific theme for our Red Ghost and some of our other guest stars that come into the film. But in terms of the overall score approach and how comedy was treated, I think my instinct just gravitates towards that.
I think music in a movie is certainly so important. I think it really does set the scene, the tone, everything for the movie. And The Gourmet Ghost is just so well regarded. So many people said that it was almost like, after a bit of a modern era of Scooby, a callback to what it is that they really enjoyed growing up. And I know certainly that's the way that I felt. Do you have a favorite track from The Gourmet Ghost? I know you mentioned right at the start, the one that you used and how it kind of set the scene, or is the one a bit later on that you really liked?
I specifically like the main title. It's just nice to be able to write a real theme with its proper sections and building it and elaborating on it, developing it. So that's usually where I go to. There's a chase in the hedge maze that comes a little bit later in the film. That one's fun. Just got to do some different meter kind of different stuff that I try to embrace whenever I can. I'm sure there are a couple others in there. I haven't seen the movie for a few years at this point.
No, that's amazing. I mean, honestly, you do it so well to remember everything as it is. Like you said, with Be Cool, there's about 52 episodes that you have to try and remember. And as you said, for composers, quite often it is very long hours and you don't get to see much of the day. So I guess, it's probably a lot of work. But do you have any favorite memories from your time working on Scooby?
My son would come into the studio every once in a while. I mean, he was like 2 at this point, but he would still like get engaged and watching it a little bit. And but now 8 years later, he started actually getting into Scooby Doo, his favorite iteration being Where Are You, and he goes back to the classics. He's now 10. And we will, every once in a while, he'll put on Be Cool, and it's so funny to just like relive some of these episodes and being like, oh, that was just a nightmare, or, oh, that was a lot of fun. And just it going back to that now years later is kind of neat.
That's amazing. I'm so glad to hear that some of the younger generation are watching Where Are You, which is still the best iteration. And it's been amazing talking to you in general. And just in terms of wrapping things up, are you working on any future or upcoming projects that you can talk to us about?
Not that I can go into too much depth with, but trying to I'm incorporating a little bit more of the original singer-songwriter stuff that I was doing originally, and being able to, kind of submerge myself back into that world a little bit. And it's just a nice differentiation.
Well, some exciting stuff. So where is the best place for people watching to keep up with your work?
My website is jakemonaco.com. Otherwise, IMDb is always an updated resume.
That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of stuff gets posted on Instagram too. I try to keep it up there.
Oh, that's marvelous. I'll leave all of those linked in the description as well. That would be absolutely fantastic. And I suppose that does conclude all the questions that we had for you today. Just thank you so much again for joining. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you about, all of your projects. They've been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. And thank you so much to everybody for watching. This has been another interview on the JayBee Milly channel. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.